An old man appeared outside a military base. The soldiers there mocked him and told him to leave. He was clueless and felt disrespected. But after a few minutes, base general stepped out. On a regular Tuesday morning at Fort Ellison Military Base, the sun hung low over the chain-link fences and dusty training fields, where young recruits in spotless uniforms jogged in sync, barking cadence and feeling like kings of the world, unaware that history was about to knock on their gate in the form of a man. No one had invited an old, scruffy figure standing just outside the base entrance, hands in the pockets of a faded jacket, grey beard scraggly, shoes worn thin, and a dusty blue cap pulled low over eyes that had once stared down enemies and storms, but now looked hollowed by time. Nobody paid much attention to him at first. After all, he looked like just another drifter, maybe homeless, maybe delusional. And when a couple of cocky young recruits saw him standing by the fence, they elbowed each other and joked, "Check out this guy, lost grandpa looking for bingo night?" And another added with a laugh, "Bet he thinks he was a Navy SEAL or something." And they all chuckled, until one of them, a corporal named Jackson, took it too far, shouting, "This ain't a museum, old man, beat it?" Which made the old man flinch slightly, but not respond. Just stare through the fence at the drill yard beyond, his gaze fixed on a specific building like it held a memory too sacred to be forgotten. And as more soldiers noticed him, some sneered, some whispered, but none approached, except for one young soldier, Private Ava Reynolds, who had grown up hearing her grandfather's stories of Vietnam, and saw something in the old man's posture that didn't fit the crazy old man label. So she walked up cautiously and said, "Sir, can I help you with something?" And that's when he pulled out a small, wrinkled photo from his shirt pocket. It showed a much younger version of himself, standing right in front of that very building inside the base, back when it was still new and painted white, surrounded by men in uniform, and one of them was shaking his hand with a salute. A man whose face was unmistakably General Brooks, the base's founder, and Private Reynolds blinked, unsure whether this was real or some long-forgotten prank. But before she could ask more, Sergeant Casey walked over, took one look at the old man, then rolled his eyes and muttered, "Just another vet chasing ghosts," and barked at Reynolds, "Get back to training. Private, I'll handle this." Then turned to the old man and said, "Sir, you need to leave. This is a restricted area. You can't just stand here like you own the place." To which the old man calmly replied, "I used to train recruits here long before your time," and handed over a worn envelope with a military emblem barely visible on it. But Casey didn't even look, just scoffed, "Yeah, and I'm Elvis," and snatched the envelope, tossing it into the trash can beside the gate, making the old man's shoulders drop for the first time. And as he turned to walk away, something in the air shifted. A black SUV rolled up along the curb. Its tinted window rolled down, and out stepped a tall, sharply dressed man in full military uniform, stars on his shoulder gleaming in the sun, his face stern, his stride powerful. General Marcus Dalton, the current commander of Fort Ellison, And as he walked toward the gate, all soldiers instinctively straightened up and snapped to attention, everyone falling silent as the general's boots hit the pavement like thunder. But instead of walking past the old man, he stopped directly in front of him, eyes narrowing, studying his face. And then, to everyone's shock, he clicked his heels, raised his hand in salute, and said with crisp reverence, "Captain Mitchell? Sir, is that really you?" And the old man, whose name had been long buried in silence, nodded slowly, and for a moment there was dead silence as every soldier froze in place, jaws dropping. And General Dalton, the same man who had won national medals, written books on leadership, and was rumored to have trained with the CIA, reached out and shook the old man's hand like he was meeting a legend, and turned to the confused crowd and barked, "Why the hell wasn't I informed Captain Mitchell was here?" And someone stuttered, We thought he was just," but Dalton cut them off. "Just what? Just a forgotten hero who bled for this flag while you laughed at his boots." And then turned back to Mitchell, saying softly, "You trained my father, sir. He used to talk about you like you were 10 feet tall." And suddenly, the laughter from earlier was replaced by guilt. The arrogance turned to shame, and Sergeant Casey, pale-faced and sweating, muttered an apology. But it was too late. The damage was done, and Mitchell, though humble as ever, simply said, "I didn't come to be recognized, just wanted to see the place one last time." And that's when General Dalton ordered the gates opened, saying, "You're not just welcome here, sir. This base exists because of you," and escorted him inside personally, past stunned recruits and officers who now looked at the old man with awe, not pity, as he was led to the officers' hall, where his photo still hung on the wall, dusty but proud, next to citations of his valor. And over the next few hours, as the truth spread like wildfire, they learned that Captain Robert Mitchell had once led a covert rescue mission that saved 32 soldiers behind enemy lines in 1983. A mission so classified it was buried under red tape, and that he had turned down medals and rank just to stay with his men. That he had written training protocols still used today, and that he had quietly disappeared after retirement, choosing a life of silence rather than fame. And when he sat down to speak to the recruits, his voice cracked not from age, but from decades of being unheard, telling them that real strength wasn't in barking orders or shining boots, but in listening, in humility, in showing up for those who can't. And by the end of the day, the same soldiers who had mocked him now lined up to shake his hand, tears in their eyes, some saluting with trembling lips. And when Private Reynolds approached and whispered, "I'm sorry, sir," Mitchell smiled and said, "Don't be. You listened. That's what matters." And General Dalton arranged for a special medal to be presented to him at sunset, in front of the entire base, where for the first time in 40 years, the national anthem played not just for a flag, but for a man, a forgotten captain, now remembered, who proved to the world that dignity doesn't fade with age. And honor isn't always loud, but when it speaks, it commands silence.